Hi. I have put a 13-degree edge per side on this Almar Falcon ultralight. This is AUS 8 steel. What I want to do is see how much I can get out of this steel. And this is about the limits of what I would happily cut twisted sisal rope with, because it's not the easiest stuff in the world to cut. I know you can get this down to 10 degrees and cut cardboard and things, but I reckon twisted sisal, the impact is probably going to flatten out much steeper than this, but so far it's almost consistent in my results that the steeper you make the angles, the better or the longer it will cut, the longer it will retain that absolute sharpness. So like the sharpness where it will just slice held paper. So the longer it will hold that kind of level of sharpness. But then there is a tipping point, of course, which would be when it gets too thin that it wouldn't be able to hold from the downward pressure or whatever it is, the impact would make it frail. So I reckon this is about the limits that I'm happy to go to, and probably that I'm able to go to. I used a Tormek to get to this, and then I polished it using a work sharp blue belt that was worn out using just strop and compound. So this is different to even a normal AUS 8 unleashed test or any sort of unleashed test, because those are all kind of 17-degree V edges. This is like a 13-degree, I would say V micro convex perhaps. Very, very, very sharp, whatever you would call it. So I guess what would I call this test? AUS 8 unleashed to the max? Yes, we're going with that. That works. So we're going to cut twisted sisal rope with this very sharp knife, keeping in mind what AUS 8 usually does. So with a 20-degree work sharp convex, it'll do about between 50 and 60 passes of this rope before it no longer slices paper. Let's see what this is going to get up to. Stay tuned. Alright, so 125 times through the rope with AUS 8. This is good AUS 8, like this is from Almar, I'm sure it's very well heat treated, but what it does show is this same knife on my previous AUS 8 test, I think was about 60 cuts. So that has effectively doubled the edge retention for this knife by thinning out that edge. And this is sort of why I do these unleashed tests, because no matter how good your steel is, or maybe even how bad your steel is, you can probably get really, really boosted performance out of it by sharpening it correctly, or just by sharpening it to a specific purpose, I guess we'd say. So say, yeah, this 13-degree edge, probably wouldn't want to go out and do any bushcraft with it. It's probably just a little bit too delicate. If I was to say, get a really knotty bit of wood or something and be, doing some carving and for it to hit a knot, yeah, it might fail or fold on me. But for cutting fibrous materials, which are really, looking at this stuff up close, it's just gonna wear your edge down from purely from attrition, from the stuff just having so many fibers in it that it just, it's like cutting a whole stack of cardboard all at once kind of thing. But for that sort of material though, 13 degrees, because there's no wonky sideways stress or anything like that, so it is definitely strong enough. So yeah, I guess I always prefer the steels that are, that have the foundations in them, that they're always going to cut very well, really regardless of how they're ground. That's always nice. So say S110V, even with a 20-degree edge, is probably still going to cut through ropes maybe 250 to 300 times. That's great. But I guess if you can't afford that, and you can only afford your knives in AUS 8, VG10, if they're just for EDC, you're probably not going to have too much of an issue just steepening that grind, and you'll find yourself probably sharpening them less, or maybe just being able to keep them sharp with a strop. Yeah, maybe just be careful not to hit chopping boards with them and that sort of stuff, because it'll be a bit more delicate. But it's a good way of getting extra mileage from your more lower end steel. Because what is this, 125 cuts? That on this AUS 8 knife is about what D2 would do. Good D2s from, what was good D2 that I had? From Ontario, on the Ontario Route 1, the very first test I did like 110, 120 cuts with the D2. And that was versus the Ontario AUS 8, which was about 58 or so cuts. So really boosting your edge retention by sharpening it to purpose, I guess, is the message here. So anyway, as I said, I'm not a super expert on this stuff either. I just thought I just like dicking around with these steels and seeing what I can do with them. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed that. I'll do some more. I'm looking to see what you can get out of steels. That's kind of my what's another interest of mine that I feel like I probably don't do enough of. My numbers aren't the be all and end all. They're just one guy's certain things that I do in a very certain way. So I always do say, don't just hang your hat on my stuff. Research everywhere else. All I would suggest is try and find stuff that you can actually watch the testing rather than just rely on people's anecdotal or opinion based, because that's where you sort of get, no one actually can. I find it very hard to even keep track myself of how much I actually use my knives. So that's why I find this a good way of actually putting a number in my head about how long these edges are lasting. But anyway, that's all I'd really recommend. Enough talking. Hope you've enjoyed AUS 8 Unleashed to the max. Definitely getting there. Pretty impressive stuff. Thanks for watching, dudes. I'll see you later.